Amaranta Penate-Marty, welcome to Green Pill.
Hi, thank you for having me.
First question, which you might expect already, will you take the green pill?
Of course.
All right. That was not, you didn't have to even think about it.
No.
Amaranta is a master's and has her master's and an LPC, licensed professional counselor. She's based out of San Antonio,
Yes.
Texas. Today we're going to touch on all things men's mental health, including their specific needs that they come to with therapy, how you can better communicate with men in your life and help them open up more. I know she's big on men's therapy and just helping men in her practice. Of course, she has other focuses, and we're going to touch on other pieces too, including her journey to get to this point, which is a super interesting story that's very personal. So what is that story?
Actually, when I was 18 years old, I wanted to become a graphic designer, and I was not able to do that. So I studied communications and a minors in psychology, and then I worked the majority of my 20s. When I was in my late 20s and I was going through a divorce, the court sent us with an LPC, and I had no idea what that was. So I got very intrigued of what this guy, because he was a man, had to do with my daughter's life and the decisions that the court was gonna make on her life. And instead of seeing it as a bad thing, I took it as a very positive thing of what he was going to say to the court and to the judge about how my daughter needs in general and what she needed to have in her life. That opened my mind in so many ways, and I took back that little card with his name, and after that the MS LPC, and I started researching, and I went back to school and I started my master's, and here I am.
And I guess your daughter felt better as a result of what he recommended, perhaps. It certainly didn't make things worse.
Yeah, I definitely think that whatever he decided to say to the judge and everything that happened, she was 3 years old back then, she's 20, and I think that it was for the best.
Definitely. So I didn't realize she was 3, so it really caught your interest, and it's funny how such an experience can just change the course of your life, right?
Yes.
You wouldn't expect it, and you found your path. And so what gets you really fired up? What gets you excited today about coming to work? Do you consider it work, actually?
My husband says something that I love. He says, and he's in another field completely different than mine, he's in IT. He says, I get paid for doing something that I love. And I think the same thing. I love my job. I have passion for it. I wake up every day and I love my job. I just consider it a calling. I think that I was born to do what I do.
Wow. And I got that sense from you, which is why I asked. What kind of folks come in your door? I think you told me that a number of recent immigrants, or immigrants who have been there for a little bit longer, and they're not so much that they're struggling to adjust, but I think you're helping them with a few different things. So maybe you could share, who are your clients today and what got you interested in helping men specifically? And I know you help a few different groups of folks.
One of the things that I think that catch the attention of the people that comes to and ask for my service is that I start my profile saying I'm a bilingual and bicultural psychotherapist. And being bilingual is not the same as being bicultural. I have actually this year, I have the same amount of years in this country that I lived in my country, which I'm Salvadorian. Half Salvadorian, half Mexican. My mom is Mexican, but I live half of my life in El Salvador and half of my life here in the United States. So it's not the same to speak a language than to actually understand the culture of Latin America. So I have a lot of people that comes to me that are from the Latino background. However, I also have a lot of people that are not Latino background, and they stay. I think that they see something that interesting them. About men, that's another topic. I think that we were having that conversation with you the other day, that the percentage is different. And there is a reason for that. There's a statistics that present that there are more women in therapy than men, and many reasons that are behind that number.
And I wonder if you surveyed, especially men from Latin America, would the statistics be any different relative to other cultures? I'm not sure. We talked about it.
Yes. We have the machismo, and I think that's a word that it's also used in the United States, right?
It is.
It is very, very macho culture, where going to therapy is, or talking about their feelings is, it looks like a weakness. It's, you have to work on your own issues. You don't ask for help. It's something that is very into their own. They think that they have to resolve their own problems. They are conditioned to believe that they don't need help. And one of the most important part is that they are very resistant to change. They don't only go to therapy if they have hardcore issues, and that is very hard because there's a lot of things that can be, I don't like the word cure, but they can be modified or changed when you're still in the process of learning negative emotion or a negative behavior. But once you are in almost drowning, it's harder. And that's what we see a lot in men, that they come to therapy when they are almost drowning. And we would like to see more men open to therapy because they want to change and learn healthy behaviors and change that for more, to be a way of emotional responses.
You talked about machismo, which must be a Spanish word itself, and you talked about not coming in, not calling for the lifeguard until you're drowning. So they're swimming in the pool of life and they start drowning, whether it be from a trauma event, whether it be from something that built up over time, the divorce that finally came, or a near divorce, something acute, right? And I almost get the sense of a cut or a wound or an injury makes men typically come to therapy. Before we get into that contrast between the really sharp, intense experience that requires therapy versus a more gradual, prophylactic, like nice, everyday version of therapy where you can arrest these negative patterns as they're being learned and reorient them. I like how you named it that way, because patterns start, but they can be interrupted, especially with the help of someone else like you. Before we go there, are there any positive sides that you see in the machismo culture, in the Latin culture, generally speaking?
That's a hard question, Alexis. You put me in the corner.
Not on purpose at all.
No. And I think I'm going to be in trouble by answering this, but I don't think so. I think that I see men and women as equal and very different at the same time. I actually believe that we are different species. So at the same time, we are equal and different. So machismo is just not good. I see a lot of men wounded because of it. I love to see men come into therapy because I know that mostly men, of course, from any type of cultural background, but when I see somebody from a culture like mine, or we know that there's many minority groups that are very similar to my culture. We have people from India, people from the islands around the south of the Pacific, that they have very similar cultures that are around machismo, that they rather to, and this is going to sound very harsh, but they rather to commit suicide before going for therapy. No, I don't see anything good from the machismo. I don't.
Yeah. No, I didn't put you into a corner. You answered, and I don't think you'll get in trouble. I think it's a feature, you see it across, as you mentioned, many cultures, and just thinking about it, it's this idea of self-reliance. My family being Ukrainian Jewish, Russian Jewish, and coming to a new country, not having much, having to really work for what's yours. Seeking help is not always on that same path. And it's tough when folks who come to see you, I don't know at what stage they are in their economic grounds. So, have they landed on their feet in the U.S. already, or are they still struggling? I think we talked about it. Do you find that there's some correlation between men who seek therapy and already being settled and okay, or do you find any association or relation between their socioeconomic status in the U.S. and when they seek therapy? Does that ever come up for you?
I think that a lot is changing lately. I work with different platforms, and I have a platform that I work with that it gives the opportunity to people to receive therapy through reading chat, which you don't have to face somebody, and also via phone call. So the majority of the men that I see, they're not video chat. They are either with the reading chat or phone call. And believe it or not, a lot of people, when I say things like that, they say, "Oh, that doesn't work." I thought that too. I even thought that video sessions were not gonna work. Before COVID, I was the first one saying, "I'm not gonna go to video sessions. I'm gonna wait until COVID ends to go back to normalcy." And look at me now. I don't see
with the mic.
Yes,
and
everything.
Yeah.
Yes. But you have no idea. I can tell you 100% how many people, and men in general, specifically actually, that I have been able to help through reading chat and phone call through therapy. Because they don't want to face the person, but they want help. And it doesn't matter if they are low income, they are immigrants, and actually one of the platforms that I work with, I see people from all over the world. So I've been able to work with people from Ukraine. I've been able to help people from India, Japan, Australia, you name it. So it's just a beautiful profession, and it's a beautiful way to approach anybody that it's able to say, "I need help." All you need to say is, "I need help." And one of the most important part is for them to know it's 100% confidential. First of all, what they say in therapy is 100% confidential, and another thing is nobody needs to know you're in therapy.
I think it's beautiful that you see your profession in it's like your mission, it's core to your being. With men specifically, like you said, all they need to say is, "I need help." How do you recommend, if I have my friend in my life, if I have my dad, or if I have someone in my life who seems like they need help, or asking me for help, but they haven't raised their hand yet and said, "I need help," from a professional? How do we we help them get from here to here?
I think that it's important for you to make sure that they know that it's a characteristic of courage that is worthy of respect. That they know that times are changing. That it takes guts to admit that you need help. That you're not gonna be seen as less of a man if you do that. And if you see that there is a person that is completely close to that, just with a little paper with the information, and maybe one day they will be the one. My prayer in general to the universe is that the person in the other side, the therapist in the other side, is somebody that is going to be very invested in their job to be able to hold that person and to be able to keep it in therapy. Because I always say this to my clients in the first session: I can have all the certifications in the world, but if you don't click with me, nothing is going to work. And that is very important with anybody. But if a man is taking forever to decide to go to therapy, and then On top of that, the first session, it's completely a mess, or they feel like they're not being listened to, or they are just the typical, and how that make you feel? It's just not gonna work. Therapy needs to be a conversation between two people that understand each other.
And you mentioned, I think to me, that your male clients tend to almost be a little more focused on a certain issue. Okay, I came to therapy to solve this. And so it's your job to keep them and keep guiding them along the path of, hey, there's more you can open up in your life once you solve this. How do you, I would ask, how do you do it as a therapist so other therapists could know, but maybe more importantly, like, how does someone going to therapy, once they resolved a certain trauma or once their anxiety has gotten significantly better, like, how does a person find more to talk about and to work on and find value in that journey?
I think that once you are matched with a therapist that you feel that you can open up with, you will want to continue being in therapy with. And you're going to be open to listen to what that therapist have to say and the resources that therapy can offer. And that not necessarily is just only coming to therapy once a week. Sometimes it's, hey, read this book, read this article. Does this speak to you? I see that you come here because you are anxious about your relationship. Sometimes men come to therapy because somebody is giving them an ultimatum in their relationship, right? And they have anxiety for that, but then they discover that what they have is a lot of trauma because of their childhood. So little by little, the therapist has to be very good at guiding them towards that path, towards healing every little thing. But it has to be a part of a good therapist that wants to be able to do that with the client and not seeing the client just as another number in their clients.
Yeah, it's sad to think that some people think that way, but every profession has its distribution of really good people and people who are not as good. And with that, since you touched on a few different ways therapists can keep a client connected, what tools and modalities and practices do you use in the session, as homework, and on an ongoing basis with your male clients specifically?
And I will not say specifically with males, but for example, I love books and I love reading. So if I find out that I am with a client that likes reading, jackpot. It's just, I know that we're gonna have an amazing journey together, because it's going to be a very easy way of discovering more than just the typical 50 minutes of therapy once a week. If that is not a possibility, one of the things that I do is that, because I read a lot, I make my own small papers that I give them with what I read, and I go from there. I do a lot of psychoeducation with my clients. I teach them about why we think the way we think, what happens in our mind. I teach them that our brain is another organ. There is a lot of misconception of, I don't want to be addicted to medication if I'm depressed. If you have issues with your heart and the doctor tells you that your heart needs a medication every day to have a normal beating, you're going to take it, right? Are you going to be addicted to it because you have to take it for the rest of your life? That's a question that everybody has to answer. But everybody think that if something goes to your head, you're going to be addicted to that. And so I try to educate my clients as much as I can to understand that the brain, first of all, it's another organ. And because it's another organ, also we cannot say things like, I am anxious, I am depressed, I am a bad person. We separate also ourselves from the brain because it's an organ, right? We don't know how to use it 100%. That's another thing. Nobody teaches us how to use it. And I'm going to another topic now, which I'm very fascinated about it. Because when we are born, nobody teaches us how to think. They just, we're born and they tell us what to do and mostly what not to do, right? Most of the time, the first word that we learn is no. And then when we are teenagers, they start telling us, oh, think critically. But then it's like when we start thinking critically, it's, oh, don't think that way. And then we are in our 20s and we start paying bills and we're like, we have to start thinking like everybody else and blah, blah, blah. So nobody really tell us how to think, how to use our brain. Our brain acts the way it wants to act. That's why we have anxiety, because our brain is telling us a lot of lies that are not true. So once you understand the why, you're able to understand the lies of that anxiety and work on that.
And taking it from there, from this perspective on the brain, it makes me think how activated folks can get in their relationships, and especially their romantic relationships. So I know you're not a couples therapist, but you gave me a nice metaphor that like doctors are trained on the heart, they're trained on the whole body through different rotations, just like you are. With that said, there are specific couples therapists. Could you touch on why the relationship itself needs nurturing as well as the individuals and how that works?
Yes. It's very important, and I think that we were talking about that the other day, that people understand that their individual therapist cannot be their couples therapist. I have heard from some of my clients that there are therapists that are doing that, and that is, I don't know. And sometimes you as a client, you don't know what is ethical or not, but it's completely unethical to do something like that. If I'm seeing you, for example, as my individual client, and if you tell me I'm having issues with my couple, with my other half, with my girlfriend, with my partner, I can listen and help. I have the training for that. But I can even see you guys one time and give you recommendations where to go and then recommend you a couples therapist. But starting seeing you as a couple, that is completely unethical, because I already have a relationship, a professional one, but a relationship with you as my client. So the balance is going to be like this. Mm-hmm. And also, even if I'm counting this, even if I would have the license for family and marriage counselor. So we have to be very careful with what we do. I'm only a licensed professional counselor. I don't have the license for family and marriage counselor. But there are people that have both. But even when they have both licenses, if you're already seeing somebody as an individual, it's unethical to go and start seeing somebody as a couple. Why? Because once you start seeing somebody as a couple, the client is the couple. So you don't have confidentiality for your individual client anymore.
And you know so much about them, like you were saying, mm-hmm. from the previous and you might be even biased towards them.
Exactly.
It really opened my eyes to, given relationship, there's say a man, a woman, and then there's the partnership. And each of those need to be nurtured and treated separately and in an ethical way. And I like how when you come in the door with your partner, the therapist treats both of you both of what you've created, the relationship, but there is not confidentiality, broadly speaking, between the two of you.
Exactly. And it works. I really recommend it. My issue with it is that a lot of the couples go to couples therapy when it's already also going
quite late.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's another one that we should definitely explore on our next time we do this, because you basically touched on the pool metaphor, which is you're already drowning and now we're asking for help with the lifeguard, but can we figure it out when we're having trouble swimming? Can we figure it out when we're out of breath? Can we figure it out when we're scared of the pool in the first place?
You know that there is something that I'm not a religious person at all. I consider myself a spiritual. However, I think it's the Catholic Church that does some couples counseling before the couples gets married. And I don't know what they do. But I think there is something good in that. I think couples should be in some type of therapy all the time. But people think we're good, we don't need it. Even if it's just once a month, even if it's from time to time, even if you are doing good, I think it's good. Therapy, and that it's another topic, should be very affordable. There's a lot of COVID opened up insurance to pay for therapy, which everybody should be very grateful for that. But there's still a lot of insurance that they don't pay for couples therapy, which there's a lot of issues that people have individually because of marriage problems. So they should open up also to pay for marriage counseling. So I really think that people should be more open to go to couples therapy since they are in good terms and not waiting until there is an ultimatum or no, I don't believe in therapy, I don't want to go.
Totally makes sense. I mean, you wouldn't water a plant like once a year. You would water a plant every week at least. Or you do continuing education for your certifications. I do too. You don't just sleep when you're absolutely exhausted and you have to sleep. You sleep every night, right? And
Exactly.
I think you make a nuanced point on the insurance piece. I think maybe companies could at least pay for couples therapy for their employees because, wow, what affects you more in your performance at work than your romantic relationships? Ultimately, what's going to be number one for you and your kids and your family?
Exactly.
Amaranta Penate-Marty, thank you for coming on Green Pill. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for being so well prepared and really giving us a deep dive on men's health, a subject very close to my heart. Where can people find you and your practice in San Antonio and in Texas generally, and actually in other states?
I'm in Psychology Today and Headway.com. And yes,
Okay.
and if they know how to search my name, I'm there. I know that my name is a
gonna be
little bit
spelled right.
complicated, but yes.
There's
If
not too many Amarantas.
there's, I have never met one. That's one of my missions to someday meet somebody with my name. So if they can type Amaranta, which doesn't have an H, it's just A's and the consonants.
A-M-A.
The first thing that they will see is going to be my LinkedIn or my Psychology Today profile or my Headway profile, and they can go from there. And I will be waiting and more than happy to help them. Like I said, this is what I do. This is what I love, and I'll be here doing it until I'm double my age.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.